You know the cycle is open. Don't fool yourself, repetition is in sight. Every time this happens, a part of you wears out. The price is always high. Each return is a reminder. The other makes promises. You cling to them, and you react. You wait for changes. You justify actions. You feel there is still a chance, but the pattern repeats and you remain. The cycle is simple. It disappears, reappears, and you, in anticipation, adapt, mold yourself, get lost. Nothing changes. The structure remains intact. The cost goes up. You already know this. You accept the pain as part of the game. But what is truly yours, you do not touch. The connection remains because you sustain it. Not because you are strong, but because the fear of ending it is greater. You don't cut it. You just wait. Meanwhile, time moves on. The wear intensifies. The scenario changes, but not the dynamics. The other continues, and you question yourself. The one who controls does not need to justify. The one who accepts always explains themselves. You try to understand actions that need no explanation. They are clear, but you choose to ignore them. Today, you stand still. There is no movement, only stagnation. The objective truth is this: nothing changes because changing is not convenient for the one who receives everything without offering anything. You don't need more time. You don't need more words. What you need is to decide. The cycle will not close by itself. And if you do not make the decision, if you do not act, it will open again. And this time, the damage will be greater. The reality has already been presented. You have seen this before. The cycle repeats with nauseating familiarity. The promises become echoes of a past you cannot leave behind. Each word is like a spell, hypnotizing your mind to believe that change is about to happen. But it is not. The other turns the expectations into a temporary shelter. Each time you find yourself involved, hope seems like a mirage in the desert. It becomes cruel, this mental game. You cling to what could be. And what happens? Exhaustion becomes part of the routine. The story changes, but the plot remains. The other makes verbal promises. You start treating them as unquestionable truths. And when reality imposes itself, you ignore it, adhering to the same worn-out narrative. This isn't love. It's a pattern of control disguised as affection. Have you ever stopped to think about the irony? In trying to maintain the connection, you distance yourself from yourself. Your own identity fades away in favor of external validation. The quest for the other's approval becomes more important than your own well-being. You get lost in a maze of unreciprocated desires. The emptiness deepens. With each return of the other, a piece of you is left behind, like a trail of smoke. And that smoke, that unrecognizable memory, haunts you. What should have been a healthy bond has become an emotional prison. And while you mold yourself, the other remains firm in their position. The power lies with the one who promises, and you become a hostage to your expectations. This time will be different, you tell yourself. And the cycle continues, like a movie you've watched many times but still believe the next showing will bring an alternate ending. Look around, it's clear. This behavior is not isolated. The pattern is universal. Others also dance this senseless dance, trapped in the web of a relationship that's more like a chess game than a mutual construction. Where is the reciprocity? Where is the real partnership? It doesn't exist, and you know it. But still, you stay, because the fear of the unknown is more powerful than the known pain. After all, what comes next? Loneliness? Suffering? Once again, you choose to remain. But there is a price, a cost you cannot ignore for much longer. Time is relentless. Each passing day, you move away from your essence, from your truth. Your energy dissipates. Each interaction becomes a test of patience. The comings and goings, the broken promises, all of it saps your strength. The choice to stay is yours. Don't be fooled. The bond only exists because you sustain it, and if you stop feeding the illusion, it will dissipate. What happens then? What remains? The empty space filled with unfulfilled promises? The echo of a voice always asking for more? The truth is that pain can be a constant companion, but clarity brings relief. Looking a toxic situation in the eye and deciding to walk away is an act of courage. Do you feel it? Freedom lurking, just waiting for you to take a step out of this invisible prison. And when that step finally occurs, you realize you are not alone. A new possibility emerges. The recognition that true love does not require sacrifice, that true connection does not destroy one's own identity. The cycle can be broken, but it requires action. Standing up and taking the first step towards independence, facing the raw and unvarnished truth. There is no magic in the process, just a decision that may seem scary. But deep down, you know it's necessary. And when you finally walk away, you experience instant relief. The weight of expectations dissolves. The other will continue in the same dance, but now you refuse to participate. Reality presents itself clearly. You don't need another cycle. There is no need for more empty hopes. The truth sets clear boundaries. What you accept can shape your future, and you have the ability to change the course. There is no glory in remaining in situations that drain your energy. Reality has already been presented. The choice remains yours. You are surrounded by echoes. Every unspoken word resonates, every silence weighs. The other person continues to dance around you while you find yourself trapped in this vicious cycle. There is an irony in the promises that never materialize, because deep down, you know you are living an illusion. The quest for validation turns into a labyrinth with no exit. You walk in circles, always returning to the same point. The other's return represents a small renewed hope, but this hope is like a house of cards. A slight breeze and everything collapses. Each reunion brings with it an expectation disguised as revolution. And, inevitably, reality imposes itself again. The same promises, the same empty gestures, the narrative repeats, but the pain intensifies. You feel a growing tension, a lump in your throat that seems to never go away. And so you ask yourself, why do you stay? What keeps you tied to this unsustainable cycle? The answer may be simpler than you think. You fear the unknown. The idea of being alone squeezes your mind with a cold touch. What would happen if you really decided to leave? You fear loneliness, but loneliness is already your companion. It haunts your days, lurking between forced interactions. Each time the other person appears, loneliness becomes a more distant echo, until you realize it never left. You just ignored it. When you face the possibility of breaking this cycle, an irrational panic can arise. The future is uncertain. You wonder if you will be able to face the void, and if life outside this relationship brings nothing but more pain. This is a common doubt, but you forget that staying in this cycle is a choice full of continuous suffering. Think about the moments when you had to adapt to someone else's behavior. Anxiety becomes a constant, an expectation that at any moment something will change. Emotional exhaustion accumulates like a shadow, and you find yourself struggling to keep the light on. But this light becomes dimmer with each interaction. You begin to doubt your own essence. This doubt is toxic, and it deepens with each day of waiting. You end up asking yourself, who am I without this person? When your identity gets mixed with another, separation becomes terrifying. And so you cling to a set of expectations that resemble handcuffs. The truth is, you don't need permission to exist. You don't need validation from someone else to define your worth. But the message you internalized says otherwise. You've conditioned yourself to believe that love must be earned, and in this battle you forgot to take care of yourself. The reality is clear, but you choose to lose yourself in illusions. Each time you allow yourself to accept crumbs, your perception of your own worth fades. The small gestures become big hopes. But deep down, you know these hopes are fleeting. What if you stopped seeking comfort in empty promises? What if you looked inside and saw the strength that resides in your essence? What would happen if you decided to end this cycle? It's a difficult path full of uncertainties, but as you take those steps away, something unexpected happens. You begin to rediscover parts of yourself that were hidden. An inner strength emerges. Freedom becomes palpable. You realize that true love is not based on unequal sacrifices. By moving away from emotional dependency, you make room for new connections. You redefine what it means to relate. New relationships arise when you finally free yourself from the self-imposed prison. Life renews itself as you become the priority in your own existence. It is a subtle but powerful transformation. You learn to value your own desires and needs. The understanding that you deserve reciprocity takes hold. You dissolve the need to justify your position. Logic becomes your ally. Gradually, the fog dissipates. Clarity begins to dominate. You understand that you were not trapped, but merely allowing yourself to be. With that, you confront the fear of being alone. The unknown is no longer a monster. It is an opportunity for self-knowledge and growth. You bid farewell to habitual pain, and in doing so, you find new meaning in relationships. The previous cycle transforms into learning, and when you finally take the decisive step, a new narrative unfolds. The past cannot be erased, but its lessons remain. Scars become symbols of resilience. You are no longer a victim of a cycle. Now you are the author of your own story. Reality has already been presented. The choice remains yours. Transformation is not an isolated event, but a continuous process. You realize that by taking the reins of your own life, other issues emerge. Deep fears begin to surface. The ghosts of the past do not simply disappear. They become part of a new narrative that demands attention. Each memory brings with it a weight, an emotional burden that challenges the new freedom you seek. The voices echoing in your mind, what will they say? What will they think? Are the remnants of a cycle that now tries to resurface. You find yourself at a crossroads. On one hand, there's the voice that insists on the need for external validation. On the other, a new consciousness that calls for autonomy and authenticity. The relationships that arise after this rupture do not carry the same emotional intensity. They present themselves as an unknown field, a terrain where you must learn to navigate again. Loneliness, which once seemed like condemnation, now transforms into a space of self-discovery. At the same time, you feel the echo of the emptiness left behind. You start to reassess your definitions of connection. What was once confused with love now reveals itself as an exhausting exchange. With each new interaction, a question arises. Am I protecting myself or just hiding? The routine silence of the past transforms into a pulsating internal dialogue that demands answers. So over time, you realize that loneliness becomes a harsh but fair teacher. In it, you discover the parts of yourself that were neglected. Self-love becomes a silent mantra, and you observe the way you treat yourself. The words, the gestures, the decisions. Each action unfolds as a reflection of the self-image you are reconstructing. The expectations of the external world begin to dissipate. You stop looking to others in the hope that they will complete something that should already exist within you. Recognition comes like a wave, devastating but essential. And with that, new interactions need to be reconfigured. You are more selective now, not because you've placed yourself on a pedestal, but because you know where you are and what you desire. The presence of new characters in your life can be disconcerting. Glances, subtle touches, or courageous words still carry traces of insecurity. You hesitate, analyze, and question. It's a new game, and you are still learning the rules. What hierarchizes these encounters is a new understanding of boundaries, not just the limits you should set for others, but those that must be established within yourself. The time for self-care becomes sacred. You rediscover hobbies that had been abandoned, listen to music that speaks to your soul, and practice the silence you once feared. But there are moments when anxiety returns like an old friend. You realize that you still carry the habit of waiting for disapproval or reproach. An invitation arises and, instantly, you find yourself questioning, what if it's not enough? This thought, although familiar, becomes easier to combat. You accept the unease it provokes, but you do not let it define your reality. The hardest lesson, however, is accepting that there is no guarantee of reciprocity. For every new connection, you decide to open up, but you do not expect the other to immediately understand your value. What you seek now is a space of honesty. You express and observe the reaction without clinging to the outcome. This change is a form of liberation. Understanding that true love is not a burden, but a mutual and light choice is a crucial step. Relationships are like dances, and, after a long time, you finally learn to lead your own steps, instead of following a rhythm imposed by someone who does not care. You no longer need to adapt to someone else's pace. The new movement is yours, and that control is revitalizing. Your old cycles do not disappear without leaving marks. The lessons learned turn into wisdom. However, the scar is not a sign of weakness. It is proof that you faced the pain. Instead of covering the wound, you allow yourself to feel. This is courage. It is a testament to your growth. You notice the evolution in the small things, in the way you laugh at jokes, in conversations that flow lightly. Interactions become more fluid. Exchanges are based on mutual respect and clarity. You observe the beauty in the present moment, without being consumed by the fear of the future. The truth is that you have found freedom, but it was never a destination. It is a space to be explored. And as you continue this internal journey, New doors open. There is no magic formula nor a defined map. There is, however, the promise of a tomorrow where the narrative is written by you. You are no longer a secondary figure. Reality has already been presented. The choice remains yours.